was Russia to abandon any negotiation posture. The Russian Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, Mr. Miroshnik, said the same thing yesterday. Chris, cut number 4.
This large-scale incident has Ukrainian roots. Terrorist methods are internationally prohibited, but they're used at state level by Ukraine. Kiev is fundamentally not satisfied with the dialogue being organized. Therefore, immediately on the eve of the next round of negotiations, a whole series of terrorist acts was committed, which emphatically sought to force Russia to abandon negotiations. But we do not consider it possible for us to take this kind of action, because negotiations and military activities will be separated. And as for terrorist actions, I think that their organizers will receive appropriate responses. There will definitely be no forgiveness or backing down in this sense. But their mission of forcing Russia to abandon negotiations by heavy pressure simply did not work out.
Wow. Professor Doctorow reports that most Russian ambassadors have been recalled to Moscow. That would lead me to believe that the response is going to be humongous if they want their ambassadors personally warned about it by Sergei Lavrov in the Russian Foreign Ministry.
My understanding is that this is a week-long operation, a campaign that once it starts doesn't finish until all the objectives are met. And the objectives are to turn out the lights in Ukraine, to destroy all critical infrastructure, and to eliminate the Zelensky government. I think one of the things they haven't decided upon yet is to whether they eliminate the parliament. One of the things that that the Russians have been saying is that Zelensky is an illegitimate president and they won't deal with him, and that it's up to the speaker of the parliament to step up and take charge. They could deal with that person because constitutionally that's the person who should be in charge of Ukraine today. But because they are now labeling the parliament and many parliamentarians as terrorists, this is a very important word. This is why in America, we throw that word around a lot and people just start rolling. But when the Russians use this word, there is gravitas behind this. There is meaning. The Russians, words matter. If you are labeled a terrorist, you're going to die. Simply put, you're going to die. And they have just sentenced Zelensky to death on international TV. That's the reality. What happens to the parliament, I don't know. But the Russians, I believe, are going to carry out a week-long operation that is going to be beyond anything you've ever seen, and it will put the world on notice that you don't get to hit Russian strategic.
You wrote a book called Highway to Hell, which warns of the dangers of Armageddon. Has this behavior perpetrated by MI6 and Ukrainian intel, condoned by the CIA but not reported, in your view, to their superiors, brought us closer to nuclear Armageddon?
100%. This is actually forecast in the book. I mean, every author wants to say, buy my book. It's an essential book. It's up to you to buy it, whether you want to or not. I'm here to tell you right now that we are on the cusp of thermonuclear war. When you have pro-Trump generals who go on Fox News and spout Keith Kellogg nonsense about Ukraine and Russia, suddenly coming on Fox News wide-eyed going, guys, this is really close to nuclear war. They're waking up. They understand what happened. What happened's not a joke. How would we respond if the Mexican cartel sent trucks loaded with drones to Whitman Air Force Base and struck our B-2 bomber force up to Minot, North Dakota, struck our B-52s, and Barksdale hit our B-52s? Our the air element of the nuclear triad, our strategic nuclear force, and they hit them with the idea of taking them out. And then we find out that the Chinese and the North Koreans supported that. Do you think we'd sit here and go, gosh, we take them off the face of the earth, because it is existential in nature. That's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. The Ukrainians went after Russia's strategic nuclear deterrence, backed by a nuclear power, Great Britain, and facilitated by another nuclear power, the United States. And the Russians have every right to say that that is a preemptive strike, the beginning of a series of actions that could lead to the United States and Great Britain launching a preemptive strike against Russian. That's why it's dangerous, because how do you preempt preemption? With preemption, meaning you just start firing your own stuff. Guys, this is so dangerous. I know people are like, Scott, you keep crying wolf, because it's a dangerous time we live in, guys. We get lucky. Just because we get lucky doesn't mean the threat didn't exist. This is as real as it gets. Look at the photograph of the Bear bombers burned out. Now close your eyes and imagine they're B-2 bombers at Whitman Air Force Base. What the hell would you think you're going to do, and what would you want the president to do? And then be grateful that there's a guy named Vladimir Putin sitting in the Kremlin who isn't a vindictive, revengeful kind of guy, who understands the consequences of his actions. But be prepared, because he will have to send a response that reestablishes Russia's red lines in their nuclear doctrine as a reality, not something that can be violated at will by a nation like Ukraine. On behalf of the British.
Here's